Hello friends, welcome back. In this section, we are going to discuss about wagering agreements. Wagering agreements are dealt under section 30 of Indian Contract Act. According to that particular section, wagering agreements are void agreements because the section define wager, that is doesn't define wager, but it only states that agreements by way of wager are void, that means they are not valid, and in case if any suit is tried, then it will be for recovering for the anything alleged to be won by wager or entrusted to any person to abide by the result of any game or uncertain event by way of wager is made, then it will not be valid in court of law. Certain essential elements which need to be present in case to decide whether a particular agreement amounts to wager or not. The first such essential element is there must be mutual chances or equal chances of gain or loss. First of all, there need to be two parties, and there should be two sides of a particular decision to be taken. That is, in which one of the parties must have the chance of gaining and the other party must have a chance of losing the game or losing the bet. So there are mutual chances of gain and loss for both the parties. The win of one party and the loss of another party determines the event. If in case of wager one party may win but another cannot lose, then we can't call it a wagering agreement. If one party loses but cannot win, if the neither party win or lose, in all these circumstances we cannot say that the particular agreement was by way of wager, because there must be mutual chances of gain and loss in order to constitute wager. That is the essence of wagering agreement. And at the same time, the loss or win of the party or winning of the party must depend upon the uncertain event with reference to the chance where they are taking the risk. The other essential elements in wager include there must be two parties. Apart from that, there should be an uncertain event. Uncertain event means the parties must not be predetermined about the event. That is, a wager generally contemplates about a future event, but that the event which has already taken place or which is past event, and the parties are not aware about the result of its time of happening, even in those circumstances the wagering agreement can be there. So for the first essential element for wager is that the performance of bargain must depend upon the determination of an uncertain event. A wager generally contemplates future events, but in exceptional circumstances it can be related to past events, but the parties were not aware about the result of its happening. The other essential elements include that the parties must have no other interest other than the stake. Neither party should have any interest in happening of the event other than winning or losing. To constitute a wager, the parties must contemplate the determination of an uncertain event as the only condition of the contract. If the parties have any other interest other than winning or losing, then that doesn't forms the element of wagering agreement. Apart from that, the most important thing is that none of the party must have a control over the event. If the parties are having the control of the event, then there are chances that they can either make the particular event in their favor. So the equal chances of winning or losing will not be there. So that's why neither party must have control over the event in case of wagering agreement. The next topic is contingent contract, which is defined under section 31 of Indian Contract Act. A contract to do or not to do something in case if some future event collateral to the contract happens or doesn't happen. That constitutes a contingent contract. If we try to explain it in simple words, then The contingent contracts are the ones where promisor himself performs his obligation only when certain conditions are met. The contract of insurance, indemnity. There are certain essential elements of contingent contract. Some of them are, first of all, there must be a valid contract to do or to abstain from doing something. Apart from that, the performance of the contract must be conditional. That means it must depend upon a particular condition to happen. And the said event or the condition must be collateral to the contract. And the event should not be at the discretion of the promisor. Provisions relating to enforcement of contingent contract are given under section 32 to 36 of Indian Contract Act. The first condition is that the contingent contract, basically its enforcement depends upon happening of an particular uncertain event. The contract can be enforced either on happening or non-happening of the event, that is the second condition. The third condition says that the event on which the contingent contract is based must be or may be deemed to be impossible if it is in future conduct of a living person, and in case the contingent contract on an event happening within the fixed time and the contract of an event not happening within the stipulated time period, or the contingent contract of impossible event in this particular circumstance. In this section, we are going to discuss quasi contract. What is meant by quasi contract? A quasi contract is a contract that exists by order of court. It doesn't exist by way of agreement of the parties. Basically, courts create quasi contracts in order to avoid unjust enrichment of one of the parties in a dispute for payment of a good or service. In some cases, a party who has suffered a loss in a business relationship may not be able to recover for the loss without evidence of a contract or some legally recognized agreement. Hence, court comes to their rescue. In order to avoid unjust results, court create fictitious agreement where no legally enforceable agreement exists. It is an obligation that the law creates in the absence of an agreement between the parties, which is called as quasi-contract. The core principles behind a quasi-contract are justice, equity, and good conscience. It is basically based upon a legal maxim: no man must grow rich out of another person's loss. They are made possible by the doctrine of quantum merit. It is a Latin term which says that as much as is deserved, which allows court to imply a contract where none exists. The court also uses the term quantum merit to describe the process of determining how much money the charging party may recover in an implied contract. There are certain essential features of a quasi contract, which includes it is usually as a matter of right to money, and it is generally, but not always, to a liquidated sum of money. The right is not an outcome of agreement, but it is imposed by law. The right is not available against everyone in the world. That means it is not a right in rem, but it is available only against specific person. That is, it is a right in personam. Hence, it resembles a contract, but actually it is not a contract. It is called as quasi-contract. There are certain exceptional circumstances under which the quasi-contract comes into existence. They are given under section 68 to 72 of Indian Contract Act. Section 68 says that it arises in case when necessaries are supplied to a person who is not capable of entering into a contract. Section 69 says that it arises in case of payment by an interested person. As per section 70, it is the obligation of a person enjoying the benefits of non-gratuitous act which gives rise to quasi-contract. Whereas, as per section 71, the responsibility of finder of goods give rise to quasi-contract. And section 72 implies that the money paid by mistake or under coercion gives rise to quasi-contract. Now let us have a discussion on one by one in detail. As per section 68, the quasi-contract arises in case of necessaries supplied to the persons incapable of contracting. If a person is entering into a contract but he is a lunatic or minor, that means he is not capable of entering into a contract. Because for entering into a contract, a person must be a major and of sound mind. Similarly, when such person enters into a contract and a person is not capable of entering into a contract, but if such person is supplied by the necessaries which are essential for his life, then that person's property can be used as an reimbursement for the person who has supplied him the necessities. Example, A supplies B the necessities because B is incapable of entering into a contract. So, the necessities which were supplied by A, now A is entitled to receive his due from the property of B. But he is entitled to receive only the reasonable amount as per the value of goods or services he has made or he has supplied to the other party. He cannot claim more than that. Section 69 says that reimbursement of a person paying money due by another in payment of which he is interested. Basically, a person who is interested in the payment which another is bound to pay by law to pay or who therefore pays it is entitled to be reimbursed by the other. Example, a person who is interested in the payment of money which another is bound by law to pay. That's why that person is entitled to receive the payment. Example, if a person holds a land in a particular geographical area which is granted to another by lease. In such cases, the revenue which is payable to the government as an area is the person holding the land fails to pay it back. So, the government makes an advertisement for sale so that the revenue is generated. As a consequence of the sale, the land which was given on lease will be sold and the person who took it on lease will be at loss. So in order to prevent the sale, he chooses to pay the amount for another which is due. Now after the payment, the sale is stopped, but the person on whose behalf the leasee had paid the sum is entitled to receive it back or to be reimbursed, which gives rise to quasi-contract. Section 79 speaks about obligation of a person enjoying the benefit of non-gratuitous act. Basically, when a person lawfully does something for another person without intending it to do it gratuitously, then the person who enjoys the benefit of the particular gratuitous act is bound to pay it back. A gratuitous act is one which is done by person without expectation of a return. Example, if we see a person or a shoe shiner polishing one's shoes or a coolie holding or picking up one's goods, it will invite section 70 of Indian Contract Act for non-gratuitous act because the person enjoying the benefit or service is bound to pay back and give because the person who has done it was not a gratuitous act but he did it for the sake of. Section 71 gives rise in case of responsibility of finder of goods gives rise to quasi-contract. Simply a person who finds the good which does not belongs to him is treated as a bailee. And bailee is essentially a safekeeper of a goods who is supposed to return the goods to the actual owner or to dispose of it in the manner which actual owner might have done. So bailee has certain duties and rights as a possessor or custodian of the goods for the time being. Section 72 gives rise to quasi-contract in case where liability of a person to whom his money is paid or the things delivered by mistake or under coercion. If something is delivered to a person by mistake or under coercion, then that person is liable to pay it back. Example, if A and B share a flat and contribute half of the rent to be paid, A, without having the knowledge that B has already cleared the rent to the landlord, again pays it to the landlord. Here, landlord is under obligation to repay back the amount to A because he has received it already from B. So the term mistake here can mean both mistake of fact as well as mistake of law. In both the cases, quasi-contractual liability arises. If anyone has any doubt, you can kindly comment in the comment box and you will get an answer or clarification for your doubt. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe and share.